Hello, everyone. Welcome to this live edition of the Play Guitar Podcast. My name is Lee. Very happy to be with you here today. We're just getting everything started up. What happens is every Monday at 4 o'clock, I go live and I do the podcast live on YouTube. And we have a great group of folks who hang out with us and we do a whole bunch of fun stuff. And we do a little bit in the chat before we get started. Today we're going to be talking about delay and reverb. We're in the middle of our summer challenge, our get your tones together challenge. And it's been a lot of fun. I've got all my stuff set up for you here. And we're just getting started. I'm going to, let's see here, make sure all of our screens are up and ready. There we go. All right, we got some folks in the chat. Right now, we've got Evan's here. Hey, Evan, Master of None, Chris Ward. Let's see here. Brennan's here. We've got Evan. Let's see. Dean's here. Happy Monday to you, Dean. And let's see here. Dino, great to see you. He's listening and driving. All right. Awesome, man. Awesome. And Bud's here. Good to see you, Bud. And we got more folks coming in as we go. So make sure I have to turn this reverb off on the. Let's see here. I keep hearing a reverb. I'm just getting everything set up here. There we go. It's out now. That's good. Okay. Evan's got the day off of work today. That's awesome. Great day for it. A little bit nicer day than it was this past weekend. Okay, so I think I've got everything going on here. Had a really fun time hanging out with everybody yesterday. We talked a lot about this yesterday, and I went over some of the things that we talked about and kind of refined it a little bit. And I think this is going to help a lot of people who are not sure the best ways to use the delay and reverb. And so also, I'm going to stop periodically through and start doing a little bit with the pedal board as well. Okay, so here we go. I'm gonna get everything started. Recording and recording. Okay. Delay and reverb, they're the finishing touches for your guitar tone. Today, we finish off our tone challenge by understanding what they are and how to use them effectively. So stay tuned. Hello and welcome, friends, to episode 133 of the Play Guitar Podcast. I'm Lee, and this is the podcast that's determined to make you a better guitar player. No matter if you're just starting out, you've been playing for years, this is the show that'll help you become the guitarist that you always wanted to be. Most of us have used reverb or delay at one time or another for the sole reason of making our tone sound better. You put it on, you turn a few knobs, instant coolness, it works. But over time, problems start to pop up. Getting lost in the mix, muddy sounding tone, out of time, delay, all those things. By really understanding what delay and reverb are supposed to be doing, we can use them strategically to get really great results. In this podcast, I'm first going to give an overview of putting your tone into space, and then I'll focus solely on reverb and then delay in their own sections. So the first section is putting your playing in a space. Why would you use reverb or delay? What's its function? I know that when you get a new amp, or you just plug into anything, you automatically reach for the reverb or maybe the delay because we feel something is lacking in our tone. It may not sound right. You're not sure why it's not sounding right, but when you hear it, you know that there's something missing. And then when you hear the reverb with it, you know that's the thing that was missing. It sounds bigger. It sounds open. It sounds natural and comfortable. Why does that happen? Because when we turn these effects on, it artificially puts our playing in a space. Reverb and delay deal with reflections from hard surfaces. Take your voice, for example. We all know how our voice sounds like, say you're in a big hall or a warehouse. It's a pleasing sound to us. The original sound from our voice goes out and it reflects off something and it comes back to our ears. It reflects off the walls, the floor, the ceiling, just basically the entire space that we're in. The sound that you hear, and this is the big word, it gives a feeling of depth. So much of music, when we're practicing and we're playing, we're worrying about what we're going to play. And then we're worried about when we're going to play it. Rhythm. But we never worry about where. You don't think about that. So taking this approach that you're going to take your core tone and you're going to put it somewhere, as opposed to the other thinking, which is common, that you're just going to add something to your tone to make it sound bigger. So if you start thinking about putting it somewhere, that gets you started off in the right direction. So both reverb and delay tell the ear where your tone is. Where I'm sitting right now in this room, it has an effect on my voice. I have a wall right here very close to me on my left. In front of me, the wall is, I'd say it's about 10 feet away. And the wall to my right, it's about 20 feet away. And the wall behind me is pretty close too. So if I was to back up off the mic, like I did this weekend, you'd be able to hear that. The farther away I am from the mic, the more you can hear the room, right? And the closer I am to the mic, the less you hear the room. It gives your ears the sense of being very close or very far away. You can tell without thinking about it. This is exactly the same way we think about other sounds, like our guitar. If you don't have any reverb or delay in your tone, it gives the perception that you're playing very close to the ear. And if you have a lot, you feel that the guitar is farther away in the space. So just thinking about where you would like your guitar to be in a certain space and how close you'd like your guitar to be to the listener or the microphone, that's the first step to getting a handle on these very super powerful tools. So let's bring this into the real world. You've got your first giggable amp. The first amp you have that's powerful enough to play with the band. Very exciting, right? You spend time at home working, getting the sounds just right. And to make it sound like you're in a bigger space than the room that you're playing in, what do? You crank up the reverb. There it is. Now it sounds like I'm on a big stage. Very nice. But once you get everything perfect, then it's time to go to the gig. You set your amp up. You crank the amp up to the levels that are going to be able to compete with the drummer, and you start to play. What do you think happens at that point? Well, if you kept all your settings the same, most likely you'd be playing with too much reverb. Why? Because you actually are now in a big room with your loud amp, and you have those amp sounds bouncing all over the stage or the hall, whatever you're playing in. With this natural reverb and your added artificial reverb playing together, something happens. You get lost. You're swimming in a sea of reflections, and the rest of the band overpowers you. Even if you have plenty of volume, they're going to sound closer to the audience than you do, even if your amp is physically closer to them. So what's the point of this? The point of this is getting a natural sounding tone that's well placed is dependent on many different things than just the settings on your amp. Your ears are always the best gauge for your reverb and delay settings. And these settings always change when you're playing in a new place. So we're going to take a small break, make sure everything's going well. Going to check the chat out. Then we're going to focus on reverb a little bit. And then we're going to take some time to dial in some sounds with this reverb I have on my board. So let's head on over to the chat real quick. Excuse me. So Bud's on the way home to PA from Florida. Wife driving. Awesome. And Evan says, to be honest, delay controls confuse me. So we're going to be going through those too. Reverb slightly less so. But delay confuses me enough. I can't get a reverb sound out of them. And Chris says, I'm not a huge fan of my amp reverb, if I'm honest. I had a Marshall reflector reverb pedal when I used an orange amp with no reverb. Great pedal. Kevin's got work meeting. Okay. All right. So if somebody could just give me a 1 in the chat, make sure everything's sounding okay, looking okay, I'd appreciate that. It's great to have everybody hanging out today on a Monday. I know it's tough, man, with work, but a lot of us are still working at home. So I'm just going to wait a second, make sure we get a 1 in there. Bud said hi. Hey, Bud. Good to see you, man. Chris gave me 1. Okay, awesome. So we're in good shape. So we're going to start doing some dialing in some tones here in just a second. All right, let's head on over back. Excuse me. There we go. All right. So let's focus on reverb first. Reverb is the sound of your echo across many hard surfaces in the environment you're in. The first encounter that most of us have with reverb is the single knob on your amplifier. You turn it up, you get more. You turn it down, you get less. That's all you got. There's a lot more to reverb than that. Many reverb processors, you can choose the room that you're in, and that simulates a real space. You'll see presets for room, chamber, hall, cathedral, and a lot of other different names. Let's talk about those. Room is just what you'd think it would be. It's a room. It's the sound of a smaller to mid-sized room. But what's the difference between a room and a chamber? You could say, well, it's the same thing. A chamber usually is a very reflective room. So it's a little bit brighter, has a lot of bouncing around into it. Then you go to a hall. Hall is going to be a big space. And with all of these settings that we're going through, you can adjust how big they are by the timing on the reverb, the amount that you get. But hall, you've got a big space, but then you have cathedral, right? And that's usually the most echoey sound, and it's a very reflective, very big space. So you'll also see other presets for different types of reverb. There's one for plate reverb, which confuses a lot of people. Plate's a type of artificial reverb, and the way they do that is they actually use a large metal plate. They put drivers on each side of it and run the signal through that. It gives a bright and smooth reverb sound. But you also, I think Hendrix used plate a lot too. A lot of guitar players will use plate. You also see presets for spring reverb, which is the one we're probably most familiar with as guitar players. That's typically what Fender amps use. The signal is run through several springs, and it gives a sense of space with a little bit of that springy boing added in. And we can typically set the level of the reverb, how long the reverb lasts, and the brightness of the reverb. And this gives you control of how close you are. That's the level. Decay lets you see how big the room is, how long that lasts. And then brightness gives you some separation from the reverb. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. That's very important when you're getting a reverb sound. Some words you hear when people are talking about reverb, you hear dry versus wet. If you have let's say when a tone is said to be dry, that would be no reverb at all. And it also another way people say that is it's in your face, right? It sounds right up to the microphone. When you have too much reverb, it can be said to be wet. So you can get lost in it. So what we're going to be doing now is we're going to go ahead and make some sounds with the reverb. Okay, so I'm going to head on over here to the pedal board. And I'm going to be using just two very basic, one, we'll go to the delay in a minute. We're going to be using a very basic pedal. This is a Digitech RV7. And it's one of their hardwire series. It's an older pedal, not really a very expensive, fancy pedal. But what it does have is the Lexicon Reverb sounds, which are used on a lot of recordings. They're classic reverb sounds. So another reason why that you would use these kind of Lexicon reverb sounds, they don't have a lot of low end in them. They're a brighter, they stick out a little bit more, which for guitar is really pleasing. You're not getting a lot of mud in there. Okay, so what we're gonna do here, actually, I'm gonna take a second to add let's see here. I'm trying to add a oh, that didn't work. Just a second. Oh, doesn't want to work for me today. Okay. That one's still working there. So, all right. So, we'll just leave me out of this. Okay. So here we are with our Lexicon Reverb. We've got level, liveliness. We have decay. And then our different settings. And on the different settings, we have room, plate, which are two of the ones we talked about. We have a modulated sound. We have a hall sound, and then a spring reverb. And also a gated sound as well. We'll talk about each one of those. But we're going to start with the room. That's the one most people go to first. Now this is my dry signal. No reverb at all. It's right in your face. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. Now I'm going to put everything at noon just to get a. It's kind of a shorter reverb. Doesn't last very long. Now what I'm going to do is first I'm going to boost the level a little bit so we can hear the reverb a little bit more. And we have two controls for this. We have liveliness and we have decay. Okay, so the liveliness is going to deal with the high end of this. And we're going to talk about why you would do that. Here's it all the way up. Very noticeable, and all the way down. Now, all the way down, it doesn't interfere with the main signal. The more high end you get, the more it sits in the same space as your original tone. And it features the reverb. Okay, I'm going to back it off to about halfway. Now that's obviously a lot of reverb. I wouldn't normally use that much. I'm just doing it for example. But let's check out the decay. So I'm going to turn the decay all the way down. And you hear what happens. There's still some reverb there, but it's right in your face. It's present. Okay, so with the decay all the way down, you hear a little bit of a first reflection, a little bit of a slap. So it sounds almost like a studio room. As we turn that up, the room gets a little bit bigger. So this is about halfway. Now that's starting to sound nice. Right, it's starting to sound kind of natural. It's still a little bright for me, but we're going to go all the way up here first before we start to dial it in. And now the guitar's getting lost. It's a bright reverb. And we're kind of getting... It's swimming a little bit, okay? So there's a couple things you can do. If you liked that, I'm going to go ahead and switch back to the main camera. If you like that sound, if you like the longer reverb, there's a few things that you can do to make it usable. One is you can lower the level down. I crank the level. Now that's starting to sound more natural. And actually, you can lower the brightness down a little bit. Might bring the level up a little bit. Adjusting it a little bit more. So that's like a big room, not real lively, and a lot of depth to the room. If we put a little, let's see here. That'd be usable. Well, here it is with it off now. Now I might even lower the level a little bit. Pretty nice. That's something that I would probably use. But let's keep going. Okay. Let's check the chat real quick. Okay, we got some questions here. I'm going to get to those questions right before, but everybody can hear good. That's great. So what we're going to do is we're going to start trying some different types of reverb. That was all from a room. So let's go. Let's see here. Let's try a plate reverb. Now let's listen to what the difference is. I haven't changed anything else on this except for to add the plate. Here's room. Here's plate. What's the difference? Here's room again. Plate. It's brighter, it's longer, and has a little bit of, you hear the tail, I'll just play a quick note. It has a little bit of a floating sound to it as it trails off. It's a little different. And it's got kind of an edge to it as well, which it could be nice for guitar. So let's go back to clean. I'm going to crank it up a little bit so we can really hear it. Very nice sound, even when you exaggerate it. So here's the liveliness. I'm going to add a whole lot of brights to it. That's a little much, right? When I add the brights, it starts to fight the tone. So if you liked that, if you liked the long delay like that, I'd bring that brightness down so that your original guitar can stand out. And I'm actually going to lower the level a little bit. Let's see here. Let's lower the time too. I'm going to lower the depth. It was still cranked up from before. So that's at about, when I put it about 50%, that's about where that room was, how long that it lasts. I'm going to put it about 60%. Crank it up a little bit so we can hear it. That's pretty nice. I would use that for both rhythm and lead. Okay, let's keep going on. Let's go all the way to Hall. So we're gonna have a longer reverb. It's gonna last longer. It's not gonna be quite as bright, and it's gonna be more of a hollow type sound than that plate. It's gonna have a more natural sound. Here it is with the time cranked all the way up. Let's do the level 2 so we can hear how long it lasts. Has a little bit of chorus modulation in it too. I heard that. That's actually really nice for ambient type. So let's see. I'm gonna lower that just to get a regular Hall that you might use on your guitar with a longer delay, not quite so bright, so your guitar sticks out. pretty nice. Pretty nice. The last one we're going to go over is the spring reverb on this. So I'm just going to take exactly what I just played. Now this has got a spring. Go back to clean here. This is our spring reverb. You hear that harshness? If I crank the high end up, it brings attention to the reverb, which may or may not be what you want. If you want to bring attention to the reverb, if the effect is really important, more important than the original guitar tone, then you might want to do that. But if your guitar tone is more important and you're using this to put it in a space, I'm going to bring that down. Let's see here. It still has that kind of that boingy kind of sound to it that I associate with Fender. Now this, to me, on this pedal, the spring reverb is not the one that I would use. It's okay. It's nowhere near a real spring reverb, but the other ones I like a whole bunch. So that's what we did. We just the level. If we go all the way down, the guitar's in your face. A little bit higher up. It's a little bit farther away. Higher up. It's swimming in it, right? And then it's like the band's up here and you're way in the back waving, right? Hey, I'm over here. So that's reverb. There's a lot of different sounds that you can get other than just turning the reverb up on your amp or down on your amp, and how you sit in a when I say sit in a mix, it's not always for recording. It could be for just a mix of anything, a mix of instruments that are playing. So there's reverb here. We had a couple questions about reverb. I'm going to head back to the chat. Brendan asked, should reverb come before delay or after delay, or is it based on preference? Well, like anything with guitar, it's based on preference. But if you see the way I have this set up here, so my guitar tone goes from left to right, and actually we go down. I go through the wah-wah into my tube screamer, which you can't see, into this effects unit, and then into these drive pedals, and then finally into delay first, and then reverb. I find that gives the most natural sound. Why is that? Because think about if we did it differently, if we put the delay after the reverb. So the reverb is going to affect that delay. Delay is usually, what we talked about, what we're going to talk about, deals with the first reflection, which is usually pretty in your face. Reverbs talk about the bouncing around of the whole room. So I find myself that delay always works better before reverb. But, like I said, with guitar, it's all by preference, and you can get some great sounds in different ways. Thank you, Joe. That's cool. It sounded good. Evan says, what neat is how the EQ of the specific reverb can drastically alter the tone of your guitar. You can really brighten or warm up your sound. And Evan says, it's much more immediate sound, the plate. Yeah, it's different and brighter too. Yeah, it's very different. Very different. Let's see here. We got some of our concert. No, man, no, not yet. Not yet. But I'll have something for you soon. Okay, so we're gonna go back into the podcast, and we're going to talk about delay. So let me switch back over there a little bit. Okay. Delay. What makes delay different than reverb? Delay deals more with the first reflection than with the whole room. It deals with the slap back. So when you drop a book in a hallway, say you're late for class back in high school, and you've got a book in your hand, and you drop the book in that very echoey hallway, what do you hear first? You hear that sound right back at you, loud, right? When you hear just delay on a guitar, you get that sense of space, but you also get that sense of volume, that something is loud, that something was so loud you heard that first reflection right away, super loud. So when you have delay with very little reverb, what does it do? It draws attention. You hear these strong delays. You hear them on vocals a lot on recordings. You hear them on lead guitar a lot. But it could be used for anything if it makes sense, where you want something to have space but also be featured, be loud. So how do we adjust delay? Well, usually you can adjust the level of the delay, which tells you how close or how far away you are from something. You can adjust the time it takes to hear the delay. And what that does is it shows how big the room is that you're in. But you can also affect how many repetitions you hear of that first reflection, which shows you how reflective the room is. And that's different than reverb, because reverb's dealing with multiple reflections on different walls and ceilings and stuff like that. Delay is dealing with one reflection. So even if you have it repeat, it's still dealing with that one reflection. It's not dealing with the different times that come in with a room, if that makes sense. But one last thing that was a question last week that I want to get to before I get into doing some sounds with the pedal is, what's the difference between a delay pedal and an echo pedal? And so the music industry has a history of playing fast and loose with words, with their usage of terms. It reminds me of Fender, the tremolo and vibrato mix up. the echo and delay, for a while, people use interchangeably. But we looked it up yesterday. Recently, they're saying that echo is defined differently than a delay now. And it's basically a delay pedal with a little bit of ambience, which means a little bit of reverb along with the delay. So mostly a delay pedal with a little bit of reverb. Okay, so delays are easy because you're just dealing with one until you start to get some more repeats of that. And that changes everything. So what we're going to do is I'm going to turn off the reverb. And when we're done with this, we're through the different sections of the podcast, where all we're going to do is deal with the pedals. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a bunch of different delay sounds, and then we'll mix the two as well. Okay, so I'm going to switch over there for a second. So here's the Boss DD3. It's a classic digital delay pedal. We have, let's see here. We have effect level, feedback, and time. And then this last knob here that selects ranges of time. So this will go from very short, like a slapback, to extremely long distance times. So I'm going to start with the slapback. I'm going to start as quickly as it gets, and I'm going to turn this on. Everything. Let's see here. Okay, so everything is at 12 o'clock except for the range, the time range. This is the shorter time range. So as you can hear, we have one delay pretty much. I'm going to make it definitely, let's see here. There we go, one delay. Go back here to the main camera. So if you hear that, that's a slapback. You hear that a lot in rockabilly. You hear it in a lot of different styles of music, reggae. And it's very in your face. It does give a sense of space, but because it's just quickly coming right back at you, it sounds loud. This sounds like there's a very loud, clean guitar being played, and it draws attention to it. Now what we can do is we can add some more delay, some more repeats to that delay, and that'll make the room sound more reflective. You hear that? It goes pop, pop, pop. So basically that's just changed the character of the room that we're in. And I think of 50s music, I think of rockabilly, I think of some country when you hear that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get a medium delay sound right here. And this right here, if you see a DD3 or one of the other Boss pedals, delay pedals, and all of the knobs are at 12 o'clock. And this is the Joe Bonamassa setting that gives him his Eric Johnson sound. So this is the cavernous delay settings. This is also starting to get into the David Gilmour sound. So we want, let's do a Gilmour type sound. We've got the feedback and the time set there. Let's add some more repeats. Let's boost the level a little bit. And let's lower the time. A little too many repeats. A little too much level. And so that's a longer delay. This is good for lead guitar. And you're in a big, huge room, and you're loud. You're in the face of the listener, but you're also so loud that you're slapped back off of all the walls. You're not getting a sense of the room. You're getting a sense of the volume. What would happen if we added in some reverb to that? Let's see here. So now we're starting to get a sense of the room. This is on spring. I'm going to put it on hall to match our delay, right? So I'm going to turn off the delay for a second. So now we're getting the sense of a big room. Not super bright, and then a loud first. Works really nice for quiet sounds. And then, let's see here. And I'm actually going to change the amp underneath. This has all been through a Fender type amp, so I'm going to change the amp underneath. So the speaker cabinet has changed, the amplifier has changed. It's not quite as bright of an amp. And it's a little too much now that we have the new amp. So I'm going to dial back both of the levels. I think that matches better with the Marshall. So I've got both of the levels I put back to about 10:30, 11 o'clock on both pedals. And so that gives me a great big digital delay sound with a great big hall reverb sound, which would be great for recording for a lead guitar sound when you've got a whole lot of other things around. But it could be good live too. You would have to live, that could be too much, so you have to keep up on that. So that's it. That's what's going through all of the different settings that we could use with just a delay pedal and a reverb. We've got a lot of different sounds right there. So I'm going to go ahead and let you know a little bit about our Facebook group. It's the playguitargroup.com. That takes you right to our Facebook group. And that's where we're all hanging out. I'm going to be putting up some tones. I'm getting all my stuff together now. So I'm going to get some tones together, and we're going to be sharing them over in the group. If you haven't joined yet, please hang out with us. We'd love to have you there. We're going to be discussing all summer about guitar tones. So okay, I'm going to call it right now. That's a wrap. Thanks for joining me today for the Play Guitar Podcast. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast player. Also, I really appreciate it if you could leave a review for the show. If you're just starting out or you're new to the guitar, head on over to starthereguitar.com. You can check out my premium 11-week beginner's course. It will give you the foundation you need to move forward correctly on the guitar. Follow me on all of my different social media pages. Links to them are at playguitaracademy.com. Thanks again, and I'll see you on the next episode. Of course, I'm hanging out a little bit too. We got through all of that. Okay, so let's do some hanging out and hang out in the chat here. So let's see here. Evan says, I like that, the Joe Bonamassa setting to get that Eric Johnson sound, brought to you by Lee Angelo. Yeah, that's the pedal he uses, and he says he used to use anyway. I haven't checked in a long time on his gear, but I know when he was using his Marshalls and wanted to get that huge, enormous lead guitar sound, it was a DD3 with everything at noon, and stepped on it, right? And there you go, instant Eric Johnson for him. But yeah, it's fun having my pedal board back working again. Gonna do some more stuff with it. I really like the way this AC booster and BB preamp work together too. Dino says, thanks Lee, bye everyone, and thumbs up. Yeah, thumbs up, man. Nailed it. Right, nailed it. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that, man. You know, this is the whole point of this podcast is to change your thinking about delay and reverb to what they're actually supposed to do. Most people just they think of it as, well, I'm going to add this on, and that's really where you get into trouble. That's where things get muddy. I'm just going to add some high end to it. If you think of it as it's where your guitar tone is encased in, it's enclosed in, instead of adding it to your guitar tone and then being able to bring your guitar forward or back. And even with panning, if you're this is for Evan, even if you're have a stereo reverb, right? You don't have to send your guitar signal or anything straight down the middle all the time. A lot of the sends where you set up a bus for your reverb, and then your track has a send, so it sends a copy of your sound to that, and you can pan where you send it to. So say you could do like a Van Halen thing, where say your dry guitar is on the left, and then you send to your reverb or to your delay, which is what Van Halen did, but reverb works the same way too. You can send it to the reverb only on the right. So you'll have your guitar signal dry over here and like it's bouncing off the walls over on this side, or delayed a little bit on that side. A lot of different really cool things you can do. And Chris is talking about the dotted eighth delay, which I didn't go into right now because that wasn't really dotted eighth delays. And that kind of style of playing probably could have its own show. You can get really in depth with that, and he says, I found some info on the dotted eighth delay recently. It's a different beast and in the realm of the edge. Yeah, that's his deal. It becomes part of what you're playing. It becomes not just the room that you're in. It actually is a featured part of the main guitar playing, which is a whole different thing, but is really cool. Evan says, I've done that. You can pan the reverb and really dial in the volume. Yeah. And Chris says, I'm in love with a Big Sky chorus setting on a Sonic Cake modulation pedal at the moment. I'll post some clips in the group later in the week. I love to hear them. My phone is flat at the moment. My PJs. Yeah. So anyway, that's if you think about the past 3 weeks and whether people are participating in getting their three sounds, their clean, lead, and crunch sounds together, whether they're participating or not, they're thinking about it, and they're thinking about the ways of setting up the pedal. It's setting up their gear. It's a good thing. It's one of those. It's one of those things that you can talk through. It's one of the things that you can change the course of somebody's tone or their guitar playing by changing the way they think about them, which is important. You can experiment all you want, but if you're coming at tone from the wrong direction, it's a lifetime of not being happy with your sound. But if you start to use these things in an effective way and start to think about, okay, I just don't, when you hear big, like the last delay I was playing when I was doing the heavier stuff, right? That's what people think of delay, and they want to get that huge sound, and they want to add that huge sound. And that's when everything messes up. That's when the mud starts happening. That's when, another episode, Chris was talking, we were talking about the dotted eighths and all that stuff. He says, agree, a different episode, too much for this one, but also timing your delays. Like a pedal like I'm using here, there's no tap tempo on that. So using a tap tempo on a delay is really, really effective. One of the hallmarks of a player who's not sure what they're doing is having a delay tempo that's fighting the tempo of the band that's playing, so the drummer's playing certain tempo and your delays, it actually can take the band out of its groove, so getting the tempo of a delay right, that's a whole episode in itself too. Isn't it cool that what are we at, episode 133, and I got so many things that I could do podcasts. So I thought, what happens? I remember thinking when I first started, what happens when I get to like episode 75 and I run out of things to talk about? I can't even get to the things I want to talk about. So pretty neat stuff, man. Evan says, we'll have a play guitar slumber party and we'll all post in our pajamas. That's right. Maybe next week we'll get some. I have to get some cool pajamas though. We'll have a guitar slumber party. Problem is we're all in different places and wouldn't have a nighttime in all the same places at all. Okay, so let's see here. We're coming up at 5 o'clock. I'm gonna go ahead and head out. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week. I will be doing some editing tomorrow for the podcast, and I will be working this week on the videos like I did last week. Continue to work on those. I'm getting I'm finishing up all of the PowerPoint slides that I use throughout the videos, and they're going to be done. And let's see, anything else going on? This is going to be pretty much a normal week if we could keep everybody healthy. That would be nice. Bud says, big help to me with help on learning how to use my new Boss Katana. A lot of people are getting those amps, hearing about that all the time. I might have to check one out. It might be a good practice amp. But I'm not doing anything till I hear David's spark when it comes in. And David said, endless supply of stuff to talk about. Yeah, and I've been talking about this stuff since I was 12, for a long time. And this is nice because it's not just stuff that interests me, it's I'm thinking about how can I help the most people. Sometimes you figure something out and you don't put it into words. And what's really nice about doing this is I've had to put all of the things that I figured out, or all the things I've learned from other people, I've had to figure out how to put those into words and how to put them into words effectively, where someone who's kind of lost, or someone who's not sure, or someone who's completely new to the idea of tone or guitar playing or scales or chords or anything like that, how that can come across and help them a lot. So it's nice. It's not just press record and just talk. There's a point to it. So it's been very, very, very cool. Let's see here. Evan says, see you, Lee. Great episode. Looking forward to testing some of these ideas. Awesome. And Joe says, see you, everyone. Thanks, Lee. Awesome episode and playing. Oh, thanks, man. I'll get some real stuff together. Maybe this week. We'll see. And Brendan says, thanks, Lee. Great episode. Okay, everybody. You have a great week. I will see everybody on Friday. And if you have any questions or any way I can help you, feel free to reach out to me. I think most of you know how to do that. I'm pretty easy to get in touch with. All right. I'll see everybody on Friday. Bye-bye.